Good morning and welcome to another episode of Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Lab podcast. I'm your host, Troy Haines. It's been a couple weeks, but just happy to get a chance again to share some time with you guys. A lot of exciting things going on here at Sky High and Fly. We've had a killer couple months here of increased interest in Sky High through a new website and also just crushing the latest with the athletes. A lot of Sky High athletes have just been going crazy. You had some personal bests, some school records being broken, just great stuff. So the kids and athletes have been working just really hard, and it's paying off. So it's always awesome to see that. You kind of it makes you feel good about what you're doing. So and we're getting close to crunch time here. So in Southern California, it's league finals week this week. So everybody's got league finals. One of my schools that I enjoy working with the most is Redondo Union, and they had their league finals on Monday, and which is a weird day to have it. And they won the men's and the women's high jump, and so two athletes, the winners go to the next level for sure. So next week is CIF prelims, and the good thing about having it Monday is now they have the rest of this week if they want to train, and then most of next week because that meets not until Saturday of the following week. So that's a good thing in having to meet this early this week. And then the third place finisher with the women also gets to go. So got a few athletes pushing on from Redondo. And then a lot of them are coming up. I have another one today, league final today, then Thursday, then Friday. So that to look forward to. That brings up next week, which I mentioned is CIF final. CIF out here is just this California Interscholastic Federation. It's just one of the names. They have their finals, and then we go to, or sorry, prelims is next week. That's a big meet. There's like 30, anywhere from 36 to 40 something kids, and they take the top 9 plus ties. So it's a big weed out thing. The week after that is CIF finals, and they take 4 different divisions of CIF and put them back together. But they go individually. It's CIF Division 4, 3, 2, 1. They hash that all out, first through ninth, however that works. And then the top, they'll take the top, I think it's 9 to 12. There may be an automatic qualifying height in there, but they bring them back the next week at what they call the Masters meet. And then the Masters meet will determine who goes to state finals. Once we get to state finals, there's a first day and a second day. The first day is when they cut the field again from like 36. They'll send, 9, anywhere from 9 to 12 or something like that from us. San Diego sends some. LA City sends some from down here in the South. There's some from Central California, and it's an amazing process. So they'll end up with another 36 or so at state in the prelim. The prelim, they'll cut it again from 36 to like 9 to 12, and then they go at it again. So Friday, Saturday. So it's exciting time. Looking forward to that. See how the kids do. Got a couple of athletes very interested in making it to that particular stage. Today, we're going to be talking with a pole vaulter. Her name is Virgy Scardanzan, and she's not an American. She has been competing over here in the U.S., and her stuff is pretty amazing. She's a accomplished vaulter. You can tell right away by watching someone, especially in the vault, based on the height of the bar. She has not given me any more information other than the videos that I asked for. So we're going to be sharing those, and looking forward to talking with her about what is she doing, if she's still competing, is she coaching, just all those good things. So to give a little background on the interest in the pole vault, here at Sky High and Fly, I'm Troy Haines again, and I was a high jumper at Millikan High School in Southern California. We had a great program in the early '80s. The guy that I chased for all my junior year and junior years and high school career and junior high was a guy named Dave Wicker, and he had jumped as a ninth grader at my junior high school. He jumped, excuse me, he broke the school record and jumped 6 feet. So my next year, my ninth grade year, I jumped 5'11". So I was chasing him. He had gone on to the high school. I stayed behind. So I do not know what Dave jumped as a sophomore at Millikan, but it couldn't have been too bad. When I got to Millikan, I jumped 6'2" as a freshman or as a sophomore, and they didn't even move me up to varsity. And I remember, based on the high jump now, I don't know why that would have been, but apparently they thought I needed confidence or something and to win the frost off, which didn't really matter. I almost made 6'4" my sophomore year and didn't touch, any CIF level competition, which I'm a big believer in getting athletes, to the highest level that you can as soon as possible. So, that didn't happen with me. So just because. Now, that sophomore year of mine, Dave Wicker jumped 6'8" and almost jumped 6'10". He made 6'10", and one of the standards slid down and the bar stayed on and they didn't allow the jump. And so we knew he could jump 6'10". His senior year, he jumped 6'10" like four or five times early in the season after basketball. So he's one of the top ranked jumpers in the state. So that was the first year for sure at Millikan High School of 6'10" jumper. My senior year, I jumped 2'10", which is 6'10 3/4. David broken the school record. I broke his school record. The year after that, we had a young man named John Bareford who jumped 6'10". And the year after that, we had a young man named Derek Moore jump 6'10". So these guys we just kept coming in waves at Millikan High School in the early '80s. So that was 81, 82, 83, and 84. And quite a run. I don't know, I'm sure there's probably been other high schools that have had similar runs, but that's pretty impressive. Also at Millikan, we had great pole vaulters. And that tradition started with the Tullys, both Mike and Steve. So Mike went on to UCLA, became a UCLA pole vaulter and an Olympian. His brother Steve went to Long Beach City College and then, went, I believe it was to Arizona or Arizona State. And he had a chance to work with the great Tom Tellez, I think, or was recruited by Tellez or something like that. And I think Mike did some work with Tellez also. And, Tom Tellez is one of the great track and field coaches of all time, Coach Carl Lewis and others to Olympic greatness and, famous coach. He was an assistant at UCLA before he left and started his own program at Houston and is now getting up there. I think Tom is in his mid to late 80s. But, that was a killer time. And there was a connection between UCLA and Millikan. So the Tullys went there. The guy that Dave Wicker broke his school record was Rory Kotinick. And Rory Kotinick was a 6'9.5" high jumper in high school, went on to jump well in 7'5", 7'6" at UCLA, and was also in the top 10 all time. I think he's number 2 all time in the high jump, and his I don't know where he is, but he's in the top 10 in the javelin. So he had a great high jumper javelin thrower. We had great pole vaulters. And then both myself and my roommate, my freshman year, Dwayne Washington, who was a 48-foot triple jumper in high school, we both went to UCLA in 1982. And, I was unfortunately off the team by 86 since I didn't redshirt and didn't get to be part of a national championship team, which Dwayne did. Dwayne jumped 53 or 52.8 or something like that and was a nationally ranked triple jumper and was on that first championship team in 87. So I'm so jealous about that. Let's not bring that up again. But anyway, yeah, great connection there. And my first connection to the pole vault. And I loved watching the pole vault. And I actually pole vaulted a little bit my sophomore year, didn't do it at all my junior year, and did it again my senior year. And I vaulted 11.6. We didn't have a coach, but we had a great pole vaulter named Dave Tomlinson, who was a year older than I was. He was a 15 or 16 footer in high school. His dad, Dick Tomlinson, coached him, and he was a solid coach. I think he was at Boise State, something like that. I may be getting my facts wrong, but I haven't been able to get Dave on here yet. But anyway, that's kind of got my fascination going. And then when I got to UCLA, a guy who was in his very first year coaching the pole vault as a graduate assistant, and I probably volunteering at that point, was the great Anthony Curran, who had just placed very highly at the NC2As the year before and was now, coaching the team when I got there. And he stayed there forever and a day. He just a few years ago finally retired and still coaching, but he's not, coaching for UCLA. I believe almost everybody in the top 10 at UCLA, both men and women, has been coached by Curran, except for Tully. And, he was really fun to watch because he's a totally laid back, chill surfer dude. I got to get him on here one of these days. Funny guy, great athlete, great coach, nothing but positives. I remember seeing him at CIF prelims one year, and I asked him how many people were his, and he gave me a number that was just unbelievable for all the different levels that were there, how many people that had come to his clinics and worked with him. So it's kind of like survival of the fittest, where they were all coached by him, which is, very flattering and tells you how good he was. So we're just now getting Virgy logged in. I'm seeing her name pop up on the screen. I think she's gonna be coming in here in a second. So let's get ready here on Raise the Bar to talk to Virgy. I see her.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
I can.
How are you? We're working on a connection. I see it's a little. We're still.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you doing today?
Can you hear me good?
I can hear
Oh,
you.
it's my connection.
Yeah, we're bouncing around a little bit. That looks better. I see you. You're not frozen. Okay, my connection is not stable. She doesn't know. Okay. So we're waiting for Virgy connecting. She's working on her end. It's bright and early here in Southern California. It's 6:30 in the morning. She's at 8:30 her time.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that came through pretty good there. How about you? Can you hear me?
Okay, because I think I can hear you totally fine, and my video is not frozen at all. I was just trying to figure out why you can't hear me like immediately, but I think it might be better now.
Okay. Hopefully we're not too time lagged. All right. Yeah, we're still a little sketchy. Her screen just froze again. Fortunately, we have all the modern conveniences of editing, and I can get rid of any dead spots. I'm not a techie guy, so usually we just make the call and can proceed from there. So if there's anything that I can do to help, it's got to be really simple.
No, that's fine. Okay. I don't know, but I have Cox. I don't know if you know anything about it. It's just a provider, internet provider, and
Yeah.
it's been probably a month. They just decided to I don't know, our internet connection is just completely faulty and crappy, and it doesn't work anymore. And it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah, that sounds like Cox. I am familiar with Cox, and they're pretty bad out here on the West Coast.
yeah,
Nobody's happy with Cox.
I might just hop on from my phone because I
Yeah.
think my computer is just it wants to connect to my Wi-Fi, but now I switched to my
Did your cell phone's internet? Yeah,
yeah.
I've done that before too. Yeah.
Well, it looks
Not
like
ideal.
okay, Okay, I think for now it should be good. Hopefully, I don't know what it is, like our Wi-Fi. And this morning I couldn't even open Instagram on my computer. I was like, what's going on? Oh well. But how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I was just telling our listeners we're getting to crunch time here on in the Southern California for my most of my clients are high schoolers, so we're getting to our league finals and getting ready to make the push towards state finals. So
Nice.
kind of exciting. Everything's coming to a head, and that means everybody's busy. I'm busy. They're like, "Hey, let's get together. I got to do a last second tune up." So it's like, "All right, let me see how your approach looks," that kind of stuff. And then I'm getting the results back, which was always exciting to hear how they did. But so, Virgie, this isn't about me; it's about you. I usually find out about people on my Instagram feed, which is like a recurring theme here. And I noticed you right away, and I think you're one of those that when I talked to, were very pleased to. You just automatically said, "Yeah, let's do this. That'd be great." And I really don't know much about you other than what I see on your feed. So why don't you tell us about yourself? I know you're not here from the U.S., but you're here now. So give us
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Italy. I am from a decent town, decently big town near Venice in northeast Italy. My town is called Treviso. It's a very pretty, beautiful historical city in the northeast of Italy. I went throughout high school, and then I decided to come to the US for college. I was an au pair nanny during my junior year of high school. So I came to the US and I was in Milwaukee and Wisconsin.
Mhm.
And I met a guy there that coached the pole vault. And he actually runs a pole vault club in up in Wisconsin. And so he kind of like scoop me up and help me through the whole process of like understanding how to go to a college in the US as an European athlete. So I got to know him a little bit better. We got very close, and he helped me throughout the journey of understanding and then getting recruited and sending emails and all of that things, all of those things. So I actually signed with University of California Northridge for my freshman year. So
Okay.
I was at CSUN for 1 year, and unfortunately my year there wasn't very exciting. Our head coach had resigned in August and had transferred to UCLA. So our whole new stuff wasn't very set in yet, and we didn't have a pole vault coach. They hired a triple jump coach that decided to coach us, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And
Yeah.
so during my indoor season, I just decided that that was not the place to be. And at that time there wasn't a portal, so I just decided to like activate myself and get onto the recruiting process once again. And at that time, there was another Italian girl, pole vaulter in South Dakota, and her name is Helen Falda. And she was talking to Chris Nilsson, and Chris Nilsson was like, "Hey, like we cannot get you here because we are already like on a full team. But my high school coach just accepted a position at Washburn, so you should reach him out. You should reach out to him." And so I was like, "Okay, like I don't know anything about this Rick Attic guy, so I just decided to like hit him up." And he got on a phone. He came down for a Sousa mountain sock and, Long Beach, all of that, like week
Yeah.
worth of meets, which is actually this past weekend,
Yeah. The play and play and all
six
that.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 years ago. I
Okay.
actually just got a reminder on my phone that like 6 years ago I was in Topeka. So
Yeah.
they flew me out. I came to Topeka for a visit. I really liked it. It was very different from LA, very different from Italy and all of the things that I've knew. But it was fun. I came here and it was just a different environment. He is a very well-known coach in the pole vault community,
Mhm.
and he knew his things and he wanted to get me better at pole vault, which was my life goal. And
Yeah.
so I transferred my sophomore year. Sophomore and junior year were a little difficult. sophomore year was difficult because we changed so much of my entire vault that it was just very difficult for me to find consistency. We changed everything from literally the start of my run, the first step, to how I carried the pole, how I dropped it,
Wow.
how I jumped into the takeoff. And so it wasn't I didn't have enough jumps in my legs to go into competition and feel confident. And
Yeah.
so that sophomore year was just a little bit of adaptation and adjustment. And then coming into junior year, things were rolling better. And then I qualified for nationals, D2 nationals. And then we were in Birmingham, Alabama, and COVID happened. And so that cut off my season just like everybody else's.
Right.
And yeah, and
Hated
so
it.
it,
Hated that here. Oh,
yeah, and so then I went back to Italy for the very beginning of the summer, and things were going better, but still like I needed a little bit more time. Ended up jumping. So my PR in high school was 3 meters and 95, which is 12 feet 11 and 3/4.
right.
And then my freshman year, I didn't really jump because of the whole situation and ended up redshirting and all of that
Right.
crappy things. So then my sophomore year, I think I only jumped like 375, like 12, maybe like 12.8, 12.9. And then my junior year, I had jumped 12.10 and qualified, and then COVID happened. And then my senior year is when things just started rolling, and we could see it during my preseason. Things were just, I would find my fifth gear, which is what Coach Adi called like when you just like start spinning into the takeoff and when you like things are just like getting so much better. I ended up jumping for 13-17 indoor season, qualified for national, got second at nationals, and then I got into my outdoor season and I jumped 14.3.5,
Wow.
435, and it was just amazing. Just, like I
Yeah.
had never really realized that I was gonna jump that high for that time. And then I took a extra year, my fifth year, because we had
Totally.
that COVID year,
Yeah.
and all of that. So I took another year, ended up jumping 14.1.5, 430, got another medal at indoor and outdoor nationals. And then it was the time for me to leave college, and Coach Adi just asked me if I wanted to stay there and turn professional. And I said, yeah. And so this is my second year being a post-collegiate athlete, and I just split up my time between Italy for my competition season. So January, February, and a little bit of March, and then May, June, July, and August. And then I come back in the US during my preseason and between indoor and outdoor. So
Right.
right now I am in the US up until Monday, and then I'm actually heading out a little bit earlier than normal because we have European Championships at the beginning of June. And
Right.
so that just like throws off our normal European season because we're starting a lot earlier. And so I'm heading out to Europe to do a few meets in May.
And that's all speeded up because of the Olympics this year, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's speeded up because the Olympics and European Championships are coming up. And so our normal season in Europe starts at the very like late May, and then it's June, July, August, and September.
Hmm.
So this year it's actually like a little bit of April and then May, June, July,
Yeah.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's cut right to the chase. I started hearing the fact that you're competing over there in Italy. So you're competing in Italy or Italy. Where are you ranked as an Italian vaulter? Do you have a chance of making the Olympic team and all that?
Yes, so we're actually on the run for that. So for European Championships, our standard is 450, which is 14.9. So I'm really hoping to get that between now and the end of May. That's the due date. And then for the Olympics, really the way we qualify for Italy is you have to be in the top three that jumped, and you have to be in the world ranking in the first 32 people that qualify for the Olympics. So
Mhm.
if you end up at the end of the season, our nationals are not as important as they are in the US, just because they really cannot put a three-spot automatic qualification, because we don't have enough girls that would qualify.
Right.
And because if we do have three girls and one of them doesn't place because it's not her day during that time, then they wouldn't, send, like, they wouldn't send her to the
Right.
Olympics just because she didn't place at nationals. So, and this is not just for pole vault, it's for every single event. So the way it works is the Italian Federation goes through the World Athletics, and if you're placed within the placements that are qualified for the Olympics, then the federation consider you and your journey, and then you're eligible to take part in the Olympic Games.
Yeah. So yeah, like you're mentioning here in the US, I know it's changed, but it's still for the most part in the US, top three get to
Correct.
go. If and obviously if you get to the trials, I think you have to have met both the US standard and the other standard. That might not always be true, but like you said, I mean, if the top three over here, I think the same thing could happen if they didn't meet the Olympic standard, let's say in the high jump or the long jump or whatever. But in a country this size, that's probably not going to be the case. We're pretty much, loaded at every one. There's people fighting to the death to be able
Yeah.
to go in the top three every year, especially
Yeah.
with the collegiate blood coming in every year. You've got these young athletes that are just hitting their prime, and they have a lot of what I call stretch, right? And
Yeah.
find people all of a sudden improving just radically. We're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? It's like, well, they got good coaching. They're young. It's an Olympic year. Who knows? Stuff just kind of comes flying out. I watched Javon Harrison in 2021, make the Olympic final in long and high jump. And you're like, who is this guy? It's like,
That, yeah.
jumping out of his mind, so well, that's so awesome, Virgie, to hear that you're competing now. A little known fact here on Sky High and Fly, even though my name's Troy Haines, my dad's name was Fantacone, and I am Italian to the core. My grandfather was Carmine Fantacone, and he was born in Italy, came over here, and married my grandmother, who was Jewish. So I have both Italian and Jewish in my background. My dad, is I guess grandpa was 100% Italian. And so my dad's, 50. So I should be a quarter, I guess, a quarter Italian. Have still yet to go to Italy. I need to go. That's one of the places that I've been. I've only been to Greece, so I got close.
Oh goodness, yes, that's
So yeah,
awesome.
I need to go and check out my roots. And but I'm always
Absolutely.
awesome to hear, and I'm waiting with bated breath to hear how you do. So let's talk for a second. I want to show everybody your stuff. So I'm gonna share screen with you, and
Yeah.
we're gonna watch some video of. Let me get to my desktop. Let's see. Let's share. There we go. I got podcast videos. We did this a couple weeks ago with one of my colleagues who is jumping, a UCLA guy that's now in Florida. There we go. Okay, so this is. I'm gonna make it bigger. Make sure it gets big, big, big. And all right, here you come. Awesome. So we got some indoor training. Now this is in Kansas, is that right?
No. So here I was in actually a training camp in Canada.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, overall I train in Kansas. This is
Okay.
just a training camp where we were really working on moving my hips
Uh-huh.
and getting around the pole very well. I have a tendency to pull a little bit or give out too early with that left hand, that left
Mhm.
elbow. And so we were really, instead of focusing on that, we were just focusing on my hips, because we found that as soon as we engage those hips moving, my hands just follow. And so does my left elbow. So right here we were on, I believe we were on 7 steps, 7 left, so 14 steps total.
Right.
Um, and we were just really focusing on activating right after takeoff. So right here, activating those hips to move, which
Yes.
is a consequence of activating your shoulders and really just being active with your hands, so that your hips end up higher than your head and
Yes.
eventually your hands. And then right there, we were trying to like do an early turn, which is where you just wrap yourself around the pole
Yes.
and you cover your hips, from your hips up. You just cover the pole from the standpoint of the videographer, which is just lateral to the pole
Yeah.
vaulting.
Wow, I'm just blown away because this to me is I was telling the story before you came on. I vaulted a little bit in high school, and I know just enough to be slightly dangerous. As a coach, I've had the opportunity to work with a few athletes, and to me, the pole vault is just so awesome. I almost gave up high jumping for pole vaulting because it's so fun. People
Yeah.
that have that little bit of you got to be a little bit crazy, I think, to be a pole vaulter, a little bit fearless.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
I got high jumpers that are scared to take off and jump over a bar, and I'm like, okay, you can never be a pole vaulter because you got to be a
Yeah.
little bit more crazy. Once that thing starts really getting up there, you're like, I'm just watching here. The first thing that I tell all my athletes, and I was coached by a guy named Baru Elias at Long Beach City College, who was a little Romanian, and he was I would call him a world leader in cycling. He was all about when we ran. He was like, I want your knees as high as your hips, and I want your feet kicking you in the butt every single step. And you really need to make sure you're rolling downhill. And cycling was one thing that I've noticed in every event from, all the sprints. I think if you can't cycle, you can't hurdle. I think long triple high pole vault, to be running at max speed. I mean, the pole vault, you don't even get to use your arms. So if you don't cycle, how are you going to carry any speed? So I
Yep.
noticed right away this beautiful high cycling running you've got going where your knees are getting about as high as your hips. You can see it right there translating into your drive knee in the
Yep.
vault. And then also right through the takeoff, if you watch right here, your foot kicks you in the butt right before the knee.
Yep.
And then the trail leg, that one delays and is the one that doesn't do that. But
Yep.
I've been watching too, just recently, that trail leg right here. I've noticed some guys will start to curl that almost like they're going to cycle and leave it,
Yeah.
to delay that swing a little bit. But wow, it's really, really awesome. The thing that I was noticing at the top here, what you were talking about was getting your hips above your head. And if that's not
Yep.
your hips above your head, I don't know what is because you are completely upside down. So
Yeah.
your hips are definitely right up above your head. That is a straight line as far as I can tell. So
Yep.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so it was a long process. I've always been a very technical vaulter, but it's been a very interesting and long process to get to where I am right now, and I'm nowhere close to be done. So it's always a learning process and a learning curve, and
Right.
pole vaulting can be frustrating at times. So this is Washburn. This is where I train every single day, and we have an awesome facility. This is a little bit of shorter run. I'm on
Okay.
6 lefts, so 12
Yeah.
steps total. I believe I'm on the same pole that I was on the previous video from 7.
Right.
This is a year later. So Canada, that was last year during indoor season, and this
Right.
is just a few days ago, a couple weeks ago. So same thing. we were working a little bit more on my run up to the takeoff here. And again, working those hands active at takeoff and trying to like really activate those hips to get that momentum going, and
Right.
then channeling it into the push off of the pole. So right here.
Yeah, I'm noticing one thing that I've had a chance. I'm sure I don't know if you know the names or not. The pole vault coach when I was at UCLA was Anthony Curran, and
Yep.
Curran has just done amazing work out here. He's not retired yet, but he's getting there. But he's still working at one of the local colleges at El Camino, no longer at UCLA. But
Yep.
one of his guys that he was training when I was there is Greg Stull, and Greg Stull is now coaching at Chapman University. And
Yep.
I've been talking with Greg for a lot. I would talk to Anthony more, but they're both so busy. But I'm noticing right here that your arms are just both of them are pretty straight. That's one thing
Yeah.
that Greg has been telling me that you want to make sure, if possible, that both of those arms are straight. And
Yeah.
what I see with a lot of my vaulters, of course, is that the left arm will collapse.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see, I've seen their elbow go past the pole. And I'm like, guys, you can't do that. The pole hits you in the chest. You can't swing. You got to keep it off you, right? And keep loading the pole. If
Yeah.
your arms collapse, then you can't be loading the pole that much. You just it kills that whole process. So I'm seeing that real tight cord between both arms there. And
Yeah.
that's just amazing. Is there a way in particular that you can tell our young vaulting interest people how to do that? As I'm watching and I don't see any collapse in that.
Yeah. So it all starts from the beginning, but one thing for a little bit more a cue that hasn't how can I say it? That a lot of people don't think about it is at takeoff, you want to create space. And I've been thinking about this. So
Mhm.
create space means that you want to create space between your hands and the pole. So you want to keep that pole away from you and create space between your chest and your hands. So you never want your hands to be close to your body, because
Right.
that means that you're technically like pulling the pole towards you. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the goal of pole vault is moving our pole the fastest way from takeoff up to vertical. So the way you do that is by keeping the pole away from you and creating space between your hands and the pole, so that that pole can keep moving towards the vertical
Right.
line. So that is one way to think about, and just really focus on just like pushing. It's not necessarily pushing. I do not like to use that term. It's not pushing the pole, because you're not pushing. You're just creating pressure in the right direction.
Right. Yeah,
So,
the thing I've just been noticing that a lot. I didn't I'm like a self-taught biomechanist, which I'm sure there are many coaches out there. I just met some coaches. A coach the other day brought me two high jumpers to work with right here at the end of the season.
uh-huh.
Like these guys are really got talent, blah blah blah. He's like, I was a distance guy, so maybe you can help me. But right in the middle of me teaching his guys some stuff, he was like interpreting for me, and he was telling them kind of what I was saying, and it was like I'm like, this guy's a distance runner, and he had this inherent understanding of what I was telling his guys. I'm like, no, that's exactly right. Like I've heard people translate what I say and they're trying to get it to somebody else. I'm like, no, 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 don't tell them that, and he just, had it in spades. So I kind of watch things, and like I said, I see it through the lens of the cycling that I was taught, by Elias, and I see how those things translate. And then I find an amazing amount of things in the pole vault that translate to the high jump for
Yeah.
me. I I tell my kids, I go, you guys are like one-legged pole vaulters. You got to get that leg out in front of you, and there's a lot of similarities. Like I tell my guys, one of the things that I'm fighting all the time in the high jump is people that are immediately like in the middle of their takeoff, their head is already going back into their layout position. I'm like, dude, you have got to get off the ground and fly for quite a while before you get into that position. I go, you are putting things in terrible order. I go, you got to go straight, like you're doing straight down the runway, but I've got a straight, a curve, a takeoff, some flight. And I go, the bar is just going to keep getting higher. So you're going to have a longer and longer flight before you deal with the bar. So if you already go into layout in the middle of my takeoff, I go, you're going 1, 2, you're starting phase 3, but you skip 3 and 4 to go to 5. And then you got to come back and try to combine those last 3 phases. I'm like, that's crazy. So, I see similarities here. Like I see what you're saying too. Like a lot of times, and I've done this because I'm starting to take a crash course in the pole vault. So I want to learn from Greg. I'm 60 years old, but I'm like, the first thing I do when you're here is I start to pull. And I know
Yeah.
it's not right,
Yeah.
but in your
Yeah.
brain, you're like, I got to pull myself up over this
Yep.
pole. You're right.
Yep.
Like right here is not the time to start pulling. So you got to wait until
Yep.
you swing and get your hips up. And I go, here, it makes sense when your arms are apart and you're inverted. Now you can, but part of that is shooting too, right? You can't really pull yourself up the pole as fast as you can let the pole whip you up through there, right?
Yeah. So I became
Yeah, you are
a
just straight up
student.
and down vertical here. That's amazing to me. I never slowed down like this. You are completely upside down. It's awesome.
Yeah, so I became a student of pole vault when I got to college because Coach Ade just knows so much and he's a
Yeah.
treasure of knowledge. And so I never really done any coaching before that, and it's just so important to use the right terminology.
Hmm.
So it's actually in pole vault you never really pull or push.
Right.
So it's so important to tell your kids the right cues and give them the exact thing to think about that it's gonna produce an effect that is what we want. So pulling or pushing is not the term that I would go for. So right here, after you get inverted and you're wrapping around the pole, what we say is get the pole under you, which means like from there, all you're going to do is get the elbow and the wrist in a position that you're going to be able to push off. So we never really say pull from there because what happens is when you say pull, people start pulling way too early and the pole ends up just getting away from them.
Hmm.
So we are actually, after you get inverted, we say get the pole underneath you. So you do that motion. So if you're looking at me like on camera, so you're like completely inverted and say like I'm, upside down here. What I want you to do is like get that wrist underneath me so that I'm able to push off.
Hmm.
Um, and so just it's just a little bit of terminology and understanding like at the end of the day what we want to reach, but just like navigating that path and
Right.
giving the right cues to kids or anybody that is wanting to get into pole vault. So that's just one thing that I wanted to point it out.
Oh yeah. Well, the amazing thing to me is all the field events are very technical, right? But
Absolutely.
this this one to me is just off the charts because there's so many things that go into this. Like as I'm watching it, I'm like, I noticed right here that drive knee of yours. I'm
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you wouldn't have been a great high jumper because you go a little bit past what I would call, horizontal.
Yeah.
And your knee drive is just driving and it turns right into a great swing because I can see that
Yeah.
knee come right up by your chin, which is
Yeah.
both amazing with flexibility and the power contained in there. And then, that transfers into that swing, right there. As you can see, your hips are parallel to the ground here with your head. And then
Yep.
really, the inversion process there is amazing. Let's get to this is the third video. Let me see if I can find the last one here. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
I love watching this stuff. I'm a technique nerd, so I will grind over film like you wouldn't believe because
No worries, because I am too.
oh, and look at that. I haven't seen anybody use a ramp before. I know I haven't been watching long, so I'm sure that's not the first, but
Um, yeah,
well,
you don't see it as often. We actually use the springboard on our off days when we are not trying to bang on the legs too much, because of shin splints and
Right.
because of competition season. It just gets brutal in college. So we usually vault on Monday and or Thursday, depending on the competition. If we have a competition early weekend on Friday, then we do not vault a second day. And it also depends on like your level of expertise and what you need. I vault a lot, I would say, because I always try to vault twice a week. And then on my off days, which is usually Wednesday or Tuesday, we try to like do something that reproduces the movement of pole vaulting
Right.
without beating on the legs too much. So especially during my off season, we like to throw in that springboard drill, which is just a vault, but without
The pounding,
uh,
yeah.
the counting of the takeoff.
Getting a little bit of help for sure. I was noticing, I don't know if this is just me, but on all those other vaults, I saw the pole when it was finished was literally straight up and down. It looks to
Yeah.
me like it gave you a little extra. Am I missing? It looks like the pole goes past vertical here when it's
Yeah, so that is because of the angle of the takeoff and where you're gripping. That's the only thing that the springboard is not able to replicate the
right.
exact timing of the pole
Yeah.
because I'm
Or
on a
higher too, right? As you're
yeah,
coming up the
so
ramp.
yeah, yeah, so the pole bends a little bit higher because my takeoff point
Right.
is a little bit higher. So that throws off the timing a little bit more, just like you can't get that push off of the pole, just
Yeah.
like you would on a normal vault. But we try to focus more on the technical aspects rather than just like clearing bars or like trying to jump as high as you can. I think that bungee is probably at 13. So really, I'm not jumping that high on
Yeah.
like a shorter run. I'm only on like a two left, four total steps. So
Right.
really, we're just trying to like mimic the vault as best as we can without actually vaulting, on a normal runway and a takeoff.
Yeah.
So right here, we just focus so much on an early turn, covering the pole. So right here, yep,
Yeah.
get that pole underneath you. If you are somebody that doesn't have a great takeoff, we work on the springboards to like really try to like keep that left arm out a little bit more and not collapse it.
Right.
Just like you were saying, for a lot of high school kids, we use that just so like they are pretty much like they have to keep that elbow out, that arm out.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that's just a fun drill. Also, it's just so fun because you do get a little bit of springiness out
Right.
of that springboard. And I am a pole vault nerd, so I just like to find new ways to.
Well, I'm looking at this too, and you've got to forgive my ignorance, but I'm learning from the ground up big time. So I'm noticing that when you swing, and it makes sense to me for there's something that I always call the length of the pull, right? So if you watch somebody throwing a javelin, they've already got their arm extended way behind them, right? And they've got the maximum stretch, and
Yep.
then full pull all the way through, right? So here you swung your feet all the way up to your hands, and to me,
Yep.
got to be as far away on your body for you to swing your hands before you do the rest of the move. So I see that's
Hmm.
fully loaded, and I'm noticing that when I'm coaching my vaulters that it seems like they do what I call they flag out. So that's when
Yeah.
they start to pull before their hands and their feet get to their hands, right? It's like there's a separation. I'm noticing like when you get all the way finished with this, your feet have made it all the way to your hands, which are
Yeah.
obviously where the pole is. So
Yeah.
you made your feet come all the way up to there, and you can see how that makes the rest of it go easier from there. So
Yeah, so I'm not a tucker, which if you are in the pole vault community, you may know but may not know. A tucker is usually a person that tucks both of their
both
legs
knees,
in.
yeah,
Yeah, both knees. I have never been that way. We tried it just for fun, and I was completely unable to do it. And it's
right,
something that it's very, very hard to change. If you were It really depends on like how you approach pole vault at the very beginning, but I'm of the idea that like I teach you from the ground up, and then the way you swing is just gonna come natural to you. So
Right.
if you are a double tucker, that is totally fine. A lot of the guys end up being double tuckers because the pole timing, they are on such huge poles that a lot of the times they have to rush, otherwise the pole would unbend before they're even able to like completely get rocked back.
Right.
On the women's side, it's not as bad because we're still relatively to our body size, we're still on like pretty small poles. Again, relatively to like comparing guys to, boys to girls.
Right.
So I am not, I just swing with one leg and I tuck one in, which is a typical like gymnast swing. A lot of
Right.
gymnasts end up doing that way,
Yeah.
and they're not double tuckers. So the way my swing up goes, it's been pretty raw and we haven't really touched that. It's a reflex we call a stretch reflex. So the most important thing is the position that you are at takeoff. So a little bit before that, right there. So keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there. So that position is something that we do want to learn, but not rush. And so that's like I heard in high school a lot of the times in the US they call it the C position because you
Right.
form a C. Um, we never really touch that trail leg. We touch more based on that knee. We do want that knee to like finish up in a 90-degree position
Yeah.
because pretty
You're
much
pulling it to your chest right here, right? You're talking about your lead knee.
that
That-
that leading knee wants to be up. You want that leading knee to be up and not really dropping because that's the end, the follow through of your takeoff. So
yeah.
if you are really jumping off the ground, you want that leading knee to like keep going up rather than dropping. Because if you're dropping, then you're putting energy away from you. So you
Right.
want to keep that energy channeled and like and ready to shoot up.
Right.
Then that trail leg can come up and or it can stay extended. Mine stays extended,
Yeah.
and you're really just trying to like load up the pole in a way that is going to return you. Once you're in a good position, you can just um unleash that energy and it's going to go right through you to push off and clear
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Well, I see your a leg is extended here, which is what I would call is finishing the jump, right? So I tell
Yep.
people when you extend, you get straight lines, right? So
Mhm.
your ankle, knee, hip is a straight line
Yep.
extended. What you're saying, you're fully extended here, obviously, and that C position just means that you're flexible enough once you're
Yep.
stretching to
Yep.
go into an arch there for a second. So again, that's creating a long stretch from your hand all the way to your foot. And
Yep.
that all the muscles in your abs and your hip flexors are all loaded to then swing and pull all the way
Yep.
through. So that what you're talking about now, when we're talking about the double tuck, this would be where someone who's going to double tuck would then start to flex that knee a little bit, right? Would they cycle a
Correct.
little bit here and then
Yep.
tuck after that, right? And then
Yep.
both knees come up together.
Yep.
Yeah, I wish I had the video, Virgie. I watched a guy, the Tullys. I don't know if you know the name. Mike Tully was on the Olympic team in '88 from UCLA. It was either '84 or '88. I can't remember. Probably '84. And he was a UCLA vaulter. His brother Steve went to Arizona State, but they went to my high school. So, I followed them to UCLA and, Curran was there. We've got all these stories about Mike. He's a character. But I think he got the silver in '84 or '88. So
That's
really
amazing.
great vaulters. And well, his brother Steve's been coaching forever at one of the local high schools, and I was coaching there for a 3-year run. And he's hilarious. So we talk about all kinds of stuff, but he's always got his vaulters jumping well, and he's a good coach. But he had a kid that when he planted, he did not drive the knee at all. I
He
mean,
would.
literally, it would look like the knee would go in reverse, and he
Yep.
still swing and still do that. And I was talking to Steve about that, and he he goes, I can't get him to swing that knee through, but he does these other things that compensate and it works out. And then
Yep.
I found a video of a guy who was vaulting like at least 15 or 16 feet and no knee drive at all. So you're like, it's amazing to me that the difference is what, when most people would watch it, you'd just be like, oh, they run, they hold on to the pole, they flip around, they go. But once you start breaking it down, you're like, there are different schools. And I just find it fascinating, for what works. But then my brain always also goes to who does it the highest, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that would be, you watch Duplantis, right? You're like, oh gosh, look at this, and is this the textbook way to do it? Well, maybe so.
Mm,
This is the guy that's jumping the highest, right? Or maybe he's just faster, or maybe he's just
the,
whatever.
the way, yeah, the way I like to think about it, which is an idea that like Coach Ade gave me, is the fact that we are all unique and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. You want to focus on what is your strength and make it absolutely your powerhouse. And then we're going to tweak your weaknesses to where we can just adjust them, and support our strengths. And
Yeah,
so the way, if you look at Mondo, he is not able to keep his leading knee up. If you look back when he was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and you look back at like videos of him jumping, he's jumping the exact same way that he's jumping now. He has just improved his run and speed a tremendous amount.
yes,
So if you look at him like jumping when he was 7 years old and he was jumping like 8, 9 feet, his the base of the technique that he had is the exact same technique that he has now. He
yeah,
has just found a way to get on huge poles and have an absolute amazing speed at takeoff that has enabled him to develop a jump style that is really unique. But that doesn't mean that that's the textbook way, and
right,
that doesn't mean that we're trying to replicate. I have so many high school kids that come to me and they're like, "Well, Paul Mondo is dropping his pole before the box and he's hitting the ground. So should we just try to learn that?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. That's not something that we want to try to learn." And if you listen to Mondo's dad, Greg Duplantis talk, he says that they have never like tried to learn that. That's something that he has done.
yeah,
And if you look at his video when he was 10, 12 years old, he would do that. That's the same way that he pole vaulted, like 15 years ago, and he's vaulting now. The only difference is the pole size and his size. Of course, he has grown into a
right.
man body size. So we don't necessarily want to mimic certain things. It's just a way he has found a way to like absolutely jump out of his mind. But
Yeah,
it's not necessarily things that we want to replicate or things that are working for him, are necessarily the way that everybody's going to jump.
yeah, yeah. It's funny that you say that because I keep telling everybody, and it's been a real paradigm shift for me in the last few years because I keep learning I keep learning that I need to learn how to keep my mouth shut because I've said things in the past where I'm just like, oh my God, if I could go back and throttle that guy now, I'd be like, dude, keep your mouth shut. Because I for years have trained my jumpers to get their foot plant to parallel to the bar when they're running their curve. And I'm like, I have
Hmm.
all kinds of reasons for it, but one of the probably the most stupid reason was that was the way I did it. So I was like, I could justify. I'm like, well, when I get my foot planted parallel, it makes it easy for me to get my knee across. And in my estimation, for a high jumper, there's no better thing. Like, when you're talking about the pole vault getting that knee up, I think in the high jump, the knee up and across back into the curve is huge. And I've spotted it amongst all the great jumpers, no matter what style, single armors, double armors, American, European, doesn't matter. If you don't have a good knee drive, it's not going to happen. So I was like, well, for me, I find it much easier to get my knee up and around. So that's just got to be the way it's going to be. And then, a month ago, I found a video of Anika McPherson, who's now 37 years old, She was on a couple of Olympic teams, back 2014-ish. And she is running, it looks like at the high jump bar and going, if not straight at it, maybe a little bit angled to the left. Like instead of a 90-degree angle to the bar, she might be at 80. And I'm like, that can't work. I'm like, that just can't work. She runs super fast, very tight curve, like very little, what I would call a 90-degree, quarter circle. It's like a straight line with a little flex. And then, man, she gets her knee up and around and gets her back to the bar and goes sailing over with perfect rotation and everything else and jump 2 meters, which is like 6'6¾", and she's 5'5". And I looked at that and I was like, my jaw dropped and I was just like, okay, wait, I have to re-examine everything. And I'm like, why? How does this work? So my brain started ticking over the biomechanics and I'm like, well, she's fast, she's light, she's this, she's that. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if this would work for everybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
there are some aspects to it where I'm like, and I'm starting to think this would be fun to train someone through a range where I go, hey, let's try planting here, let's try planting here, let's try planting here, and just work our way from here to here and see what works, in between.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm introducing it to some kids and they take right to it. And then when I do it with other kids, it's like, oh no, that doesn't
Yeah.
work at all. You're like, okay, it doesn't work. Great.
Yep.
I've changed the name of my business to Sky High and Fly Jump Lab because I just say, quote unquote, we're in the lab every
Yeah.
day experimenting and seeing,
Yeah.
what we can tweak and what works, so. Oh, I just love watching the vault. There's so many things in there, and I watch. To me, I don't know if it's just because I love them both, but the high jump and the pole vault, I keep finding things that it makes it relatable for me because I think high jump comes first. But I'm like, oh yeah, that's just like in the jump with like I said, not throwing your head back right away. I see.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't want to get inverted before you finish swinging. It's
Nope.
like if there's an event that's more sequential than the high jump, it has to be pole vault. You cannot, there's certain things you have to do in a certain order or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And it's so important, especially in the vault, to just follow each phase and not rush the timing.
Mhm,
Because at the end of the day, it's not just you like doing something, but it's you with an equipment. And if you
mhm.
rush that equipment, then the timing is just not going to be right. And
Yeah.
so it's just so hard. And then let alone the technique and everything that goes along with that, and then we throw in the mental aspect of the pole
Mhm,
vault, and that's just like becomes even more complicated.
mhm.
And the fact that we're jumping outside and there's the wind and there's the sun and then there's
Yeah.
the rain and all of that, and then you got to go up a pole, and I
Yeah.
just get frustrated at times and I'm like, why did I choose pole vault?
I'm amazed because I have told this story before, I think, but when I went to watch Curran the very first time work with the kids, and literally I know he works with other than kids, but most of his work is probably done with kids. But he was like, he would tell them, first of all, he's like, hey, I want you to get the 13. I want you to, go back, this, raise two handholds and blah. And it was like this. He would each kid, he's come through first. He's like, okay, here you go. And I watched him. He's just like your coach. He puts his hand on their back, pushes them into the takeoff, and sometimes you could hear him saying, okay, here you go, have a nice flight. And he's pushing them into the jump. And I'm watching this every time. The hand on the small of the back, boom, into the takeoff, right? But the commands that I would listen to after, I was always just fascinated by because his brain has done it for so long that it was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you're killing that pole. So go get this other one. And sometimes it was this complicated direction on where to find it in the shed. So I was like, go back there, grab this one. It's the one with the red cap. Yeah, go and get that. And then I want you to move back here, move your hand, hold up, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm taking notes furiously going, okay. And then I'm asking him later, I'm like, okay, what the hell did you just say, Anthony? Like, why did you do all that? And he's like, well, and when he explained it to me, it kind of makes sense. But then the very next command to somebody else would just screw me up. I'm just like, okay, I don't, it's a totally different language. so many parts to it, like you said, and it's really fascinating for people that don't know anything about it when they're just watching something. Oh, you just hold on to the pole and flip around, right? It's like, yeah, pretty much. But
Yeah, no,
you
no.
were talking about the changing of the flex point. I'm sure the poles have changed in the last 40 years since I started watching in high school. You've gotten better and better equipment. There's more snap here, but I keep thinking of watching, like, one of my other favorite sports is golf. And it's so technology dependent too. Like, where you're watching these, oh, we've got this higher flex shaft and it does this and that. So I'm like,
Oh yeah.
oh, amazing what you guys are doing, the athleticism, everything else. And you were mentioning before something else that I've heard in vogue. First, I was thinking about the pole drop. I've had a couple of my vaulters that are doing the thing now where they just put the pole on the ground and they run and just run with it like that, right? And I'm like, I see you shaking your head, no, no, no. But I'm like, this must be a Mondo thing, right? Was that what, does he literally drag it before he hits the plant? I haven't even watched.
Um, yeah, at times when the bar goes really high, there has been videos showing that he drops the tip of the pole right before it hits the box. So basically, if the box was right here, he would drop it here and then has like a few centimeter that like drags into the ground before hitting the box.
Mhm.
And that has happened to me, and it's something that we have never coached. We have never actually trained. It just so happened.
Right.
And to me, it actually happened in the wrong timing and in the wrong facility because it was a it was a race runway. And actually, as the bar went up, I started like dropping the pole a little bit earlier. And what happens is at one jump, there was a very small gap between the runway and the box because it was like human made. They, set it up for that competition, and
Right.
the runway and the box were not attached to each other, and there wasn't like a tape
Oh,
on top of it. And
right.
so my pole actually hit that leap in between the runway and the bar, and it was the runway and sorry, and the box, and it was not fun. Um, but yeah, scooting, we call them scooters. Those are people that do not pick up the pole, they just
Mhm.
drag the pole along.
Yeah.
And it's just, first of all, you go through your plug increasing.
Right. You're going to wear those out.
Yeah,
Sure.
you're wearing that out. And it's just it's a totally different it's not a totally different sport, but there's a just you're just not using the whole momentum that you could be using from like the top
Yeah.
of the pole,
Friction.
from like
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, from the friction, and it's just it doesn't we are not I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah.
We have had a few high schoolers coming in and like they were scooters, and my coach just like in a very nice way told them, hey, if you come here, we're going to learn how to drop the pole and
Yeah.
actually carry it all up, and they end up being better bolters that way. So
It's like
I
a
know
crutch,
there
right? Yeah.
yeah, I know there are people that like jump pretty high scooting the pole, but it's just not something that
Yeah.
we like and we support.
Can't think of any technical advantages, right? It's not like it's hitting the back of the box any better or.
No, not really. You're actually just like you're decreasing your speed at takeoff, and you have to run. I mean, just think about like, are you gonna run faster carrying like a bag or like dragging the bag, you
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
so the pole is pretty light, but you're also just gaining momentum by the drop of the pole
Right.
itself. And so you do not want to drag that pole around, and
Yeah.
it would be like you plus the pole against the ground, whereas if you're carrying it, it's just you carrying the pole vertical.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's not
Interesting.
something.
No. Yeah. Well, hey, I hate to do this. I would talk to you for another hour. We set this up early because I'm a school teacher and I'm looking at the clock going, we got to roll. But Virgie, I want to keep you on the short list of the people that I want to talk with. So I would love it if you continue to send me video of how you're doing.
Yes.
I would love to break it down even further, and I'd love to hear you teach us about the mental aspects that you mentioned. We didn't talk at all about training. as far as, lifting weights and, what it is that you do, what maybe even go into a discussion of what you learned when you were in Italy versus what you've learned over here. Because I
Yeah,
love peeking behind the curtain. That's one of the things Instagram has done for me is open my eyes. I've always wanted to go, what do the Russians do? I see
yeah,
these little camps, where they're showing these people running around. They've got 50 kids and they're, I know, for instance, that I keep hearing that gymnasts and acrobats are in vogue for pole vault.
yeah,
They have such good body control, right? And
yep,
I'm like, I love to hear all those little details, and even more so, I'm just a big fan, and I want to see you get through the mill and get into the Olympic Games because I've shared this on this podcast. I had that same dream, and I was a 7'3" high jumper, and I had to jump. I think the height just kept going up. So when I jumped 7'2" in college, the height was 7'4", and I was like right there. That's like 5 centimeters. And
yep,
you know, the very next time, 4 years later, it had already gone up to 4 3/4 or 5 1/4. It just kept going up. So every
yep.
time I got a little better, it got a little higher, and I just never quite made it. And but that was a dream from when I was a kid, and I love hearing about and watching the struggle, and when you see that somebody just making it. I think some people are always like, kind of jaded. They're like, oh, they went to the Olympics, but they came in 10th place or something, and I'm just like, dude, do you realize how good you
Yeah,
have to be just to get there? you
yeah,
know, just to get there, let alone to win.
yeah.
So would love to keep checking back in with you. And I don't know how we're going to do that as your season intensifies, but if you can carve out the time again, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe we should do a Zoom with all of your high school kids, and maybe we can do like a rundown of like a technique
Oh, that
or
would be
like,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, you could. I love to teach, I love to coach, I love to give back to the next generation. So if that could be something that you are interested in, I am absolutely up for it. Maybe we could just give out a Zoom link to all of your athletes, and we could break down a vault session or something that they might be interested. So maybe you could just give them a
Right.
poll and like learn what they want to know and what they would
Yeah.
like to learn. And if they're up for this Italian girl teaching them, then I'm all up for it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm gonna run that by my good friend Greg Stull, and I
Yeah,
know that he has vaulters there at Chapman that are just out of high school, and I'm sure they would be very happy to learn from someone who is striving to get into the Olympics themselves. So,
yeah.
Virgy, thank you so much for your time spending
Thank you
here with
so
us on
much.
Raise the Bar. And
Yeah,
yeah, we'll do this again for sure. I'm excited to see and hear about what you're doing. So keep me in the loop.
absolutely will do. Thank you for your time, and I
All right.
truly appreciate.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that is going to wrap it up here again on Raise the Bar with the lovely Virgy Scardanzan. She is from Italy. She has done, it sounds like the bulk of her training and jumping over here in the States. She is a current Olympic hopeful for the Italian team, and she's vaulted over 14 feet. Just very engaging and very open, and has a lot of technical knowledge, seems to be a real true technician, and her understanding of the vault. She's been coached by some of the best coaches over here. And wow, what a treat. So we are looking forward to watching her continue to improve and hopefully make the team over there. My dream was to make it, to an Olympic trial, let alone the Olympics. Sounds like she's going to be in quote unquote the Olympic trials for the Italian team, and then hopefully finishes in the top three and gets to go. So just a great time talking technique and getting a chance to watch her stuff on the video. Again, here on Raise the Bar, here in Sky High and Fly Jump Lab, we are just pushing forward with our season finals and everything, and pushing towards CIF and the Junior Olympics in the summer, and all kinds of great things are happening. Check out the website. It is Sky High and Fly Jump Lab. We have, you can always find me on Instagram. We will put this video up on YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel, and we'd love it if you subscribe and follow. We are always trying to talk to high jumpers, long jumpers, triple jumpers, pole vaulters. We are raising the bar in all that we do and how we coach. So join us again, and we'll have this one produced and out quickly because it was a lot of fun. Thank you again to Virgy, and we're looking forward to see what she does. And join us again soon here on Raise the Bar for another episode. I can't remember who my next guest is. I'm always looking. So if I had somebody commit, I can't remember right now because my brain's kind of overwhelmed with all that's going on here at the end of the season. But all right, until next time, this is Troy Haines signing off here on Raise the Bar. Take care.